Well, we have Kelly Edwards with lawtonmg.com, and I'll put that link in the show notes. But she's also written a book, so I want to make sure everybody has that information. So go to thereferralmagnet.com for more details on that. And Kelly, I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks so much. Glad to be here.
So let's start things off. I always find that marketing specialists it's kind of an accidental occupation. How did you end up here?
Yeah, I am one of those extremely strange people that actually wanted to do this from the time that I was in middle school. So it's a story you don't hear often, but I actually majored in marketing in college, got a degree in it, and have been doing this for a little over 20 years now.
So you mentioned that early on you had some real estate marketing experience as well. How did that go?
Yeah, so my husband actually in his late 20s worked in real estate on a real estate team in the Dallas area, and just getting to know him and some of his coworkers there, I was hired for several years to be the marketing director of a large real estate team in the Dallas area. And then that team branched off and actually created a real estate coaching and consulting company. And I went over there as the marketing director for them for a number of years as well. So I know the real estate industry very, very well.
Well, when you let's just jump right in. Your domain name and book says it all. The Referral Magnet. What made you decide to write this book?
The interesting thing in a lot of industries, real estate, finance, and others, referrals are, that's the best kind of lead you can get. People come to you kind of pre-sold. They already have heard great things about you. And I just found in my time and, working in marketing that there's kind of a fallacy with referrals. And that's that people often feel like your only way to get referrals is either to ask for them or they just sort of come to you passively. But the truth is there's a lot of middle ground in between there. There's a lot that you can do as a business owner where the net output is an increase in referrals, but not asking for them. I don't advocate asking for referrals. If people have found a way to do it and not be awkward, more power to them. I just think it's really awkward for most people. So wrote the book on, kind of teaching all the different things that you can do to generate referrals without asking for them.
Yeah, I used to be a part of a networking group, and it was all about referrals. It could get a little awkward sometimes.
Yeah, and those groups are great and they have their place. I just think, I don't know, some people find their way and do really well with asking for them. But in my experience, most people find it awkward to ask for referrals, and the people being asked find it awkward as well. So it's just kind of a salesy thing that doesn't really need to be inserted into a relationship, in my opinion.
Right. So, well, one of those things that says, you have 3 bullet points on your website. One of them is enhance your brand. Mm-hmm. How would you say that ties into building your referrals? Or if you don't ask for them, how are you getting them?
Yeah. So on enhancing your brand, and where that matters is when you think about the cycle of a referral, people think about and always talk about getting referrals. There's really 2 sides to it. It's getting referrals, and then it's those referrals deciding to actually reach out to you and convert to prospects. And so that's where having a strong brand comes into play. I always tell people you don't actually know how many referrals you're getting. You know how many are actually making it all the way through and choosing to contact you. And there's a difference there for sure. So, building a referable brand means making sure that you have everything in place so that when somebody is going through the process of Googling you and vetting you to check you out, that they can find you quickly and easily, and that everything they find sends the right message and inspires them to get in touch. So that's really how your brand affects that referral process in a significant way. And that's often not even thought of by people.
Yeah. And I've mentioned a couple times, it seems like when it comes to marketing, especially, I think I can safely clump in not only real estate investors, but realtors into the same pool. We're kind of behind the trends right now when it comes to this type of thing. So when you say make yourself easily found and a few other, those type of things, especially online, what are a couple of those low-hanging fruits, something that's easily done that somebody that's listening to the show right now, an action item they can take this afternoon to make a significant change in that?
Great question. Yeah. I mean, the first thing you should do is actually Google yourself the way that somebody referred to you would. Google your name. Oftentimes it's maybe your name and the city you're in, or the name and the industry you're in, like, Kelly Edwards Investor or something like that. But Google yourself the way a prospect would, and look at what actually comes up and what doesn't. I mean, the goal would be to see your personal website, your social media profiles, and basically content that you control coming up to fill up the first page of Google. So if that is not happening, and either competitors are coming up, or maybe if anyone who's been in business long enough might have a bad review or two out there, if that's what's showing up, then definitely need to take steps to fix that. I would say the first thing is to make sure that you've got a good modern website that has the right kind of information about your firm and what you do and why you do it, and pictures and all that good stuff. And then certainly a super low-hanging fruit is making sure that, and people don't think about this a lot, but making sure that all of the critical directories online that you are listed properly in there and completely in there. And by directories, I mean, like, Google has a business directory. Bing has a business directory. There's Yelp that most people are familiar with, City Search, Yellow Pages, et cetera. There's about 20 to 25 critical web directories. And you need to make sure that you are listed in you're listed consistently in all of those. And most of them are free listings. You're listed in there completely and consistently the same way in all of them. That's going to make a tremendous impact in how you show up on the first page of Google.
And then with all of that, you mentioned the directories, and I've actually found that there was a company that I'd been working with that got a negative review, and it wasn't even associated with their business. I don't even know how it ended up on there. But what do you do with those situations where you mentioned having those reviews, where you get a negative review and it doesn't even pertain to you? It seems like it's impossible to get them removed.
It is extremely difficult to get them removed. That is true. Review websites are very hardcore about not removing reviews. There are some instances, if you can absolutely beyond a shadow of a doubt prove that they're not talking about you, or you read the review and it's clearly not even in the same industry. They do all have like an appeals process that you can go through to try to get them removed. But I will tell you from experience, the attitude of Google and Yelp and others is basically like, hey, we're a free service. You didn't pay to even be in Google. We're not responsible for the reviews on your profile. Sorry, not sorry. It's unfortunate. And as a business owner, it can be very frustrating. The best thing you can do is the best defense, I guess, and it is a good offense. Get reviews ahead of time. Make it a point to solicit reviews on, your important channels like Google and Yelp and other places like that. Just be sure to solicit them. Ask people that you're working with for reviews, and that way you can compile enough to where if a bad one slips through every now and then, it's not going to hurt you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So earlier you mentioned having a personal website. Do you recommend that you have one basically at your name as the URL? Like, is that something you would typically suggest for people?
Yes, I do, especially in the type of industry where it's, people hiring people more so than hiring a company. So if you're a realtor, or you're an investor, or you're a financial advisor, I mean, these are all industries where people hire people. They're going to be looking for you by name. Even if you have a company, you have a DBA name, whatever, you've got a corporate name, great. You can have that on the website as well. You can have a URL that has your company's name in it as well. But it's a great best practice to definitely brand yourself as well. You can have more than one domain name pointing at a website. So you could have your company name and your personal name pointing at the website. But certainly, anything that you want to show up for, you need to have a decent volume of information about that on your website. So when that comes to you and people looking for you, make sure you have a really robust bio page that gives lots of detail about who you are. In websites in general, in this day and age, you really want to be brief with your content because people won't read very much. Everybody's busy and nobody's going to take the time to read lots of paragraphs. The one exception to that is your bio. People will, when they're vetting a person that they're considering working with, they will read a lot of times every word of your bio. So the more you have out there, the better. Talk about your personal life, talk about your past experience, your education, what you do, et cetera. And having a robust page like that will definitely help you to show up when people are looking for you.
So, that's especially interesting. Do you find that you mentioned put anything and everything up there? Are you literally putting anything and everything up there? Or are you targeting the specific categories?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to your bio, yeah, I mean, certainly nothing, you wouldn't want to put anything that's not flattering, but you don't know what's important to different people. So some people are going to care a lot about how long you've been in the business and how many people you've worked with. Some people don't care at all about that. Some care about your education, some don't. So just put it all there and make sure that it's really well organized so that people can kind of visually skim and scan and choose to read what they care about most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, okay. That makes a lot of sense. So, you mentioned in your book, I was glancing through the contents here. It says passing the test you don't know you're taking.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that's an interesting line. What do you mean by that?
So the test you don't know you're taking is referencing that vetting process that every business owner goes through. When somebody is referred to you, or you're running ads, you're doing social media ads or traditional marketing or whatever, you're driving people to a website, to a web presence of some sort. And at that point, there's a test going on that you're not aware of. You don't know that they're there vetting you, but that's what people are there doing. They're qualifying or disqualifying you based on what they find on the website. So that's, ideally you want to pass the test that you don't know you're taking. That is going on. It's a passive process that you're not involved with, but it's absolutely happening. And the more times you pass that test, the more referrals and the more leads and prospects actually make their way to reaching out to you.
Sure. Just to remind everybody, go to the referralmagnet.com for more information, particularly regarding this book. I think there's a lot of content here. It looks like you've crammed in a lot of information in about 280 pages.
Yes, it definitely has a lot of robust information, and really wanted to make sure that I gave a lot of detail for people to be able to implement strategies right away. And I know I get frustrated sometimes reading books when how am I supposed to do that part is not answered. So the book gives a lot of really practical advice and steps to get started. And becoming a referral magnet, there's really two sides of it, and the book is divided into two parts. And the first part of that is building a referable brand, something that's going to convert when people actually find their way to you. And then the other part of that is, well, how do I get more people coming to me to begin with? And that's all about, doing things in the business where there's an increased volume in your current clients and centers of influence referring people to you. So increasing the referrals and then also increasing the conversions.
I would have to think that some of this has to do with making things easy for people to reach out to you then when they are vetting you online. Is there tips or strategies regarding that? Like, what do you suggest?
Yeah, absolutely. I would suggest having multiple ways for people to reach out to you. Every way that you're willing to take a lead, put it out there. That could be including your cell phone, your email address, letting people text you, having a form on the website. One of the mistakes I see people make a lot is that they will, for example, they'll have a contact page and the only thing on the contact page is a form that they can fill out. Honestly, not everybody likes to fill out a form. Some people prefer to have a phone call or to shoot you a text message or whatever. So the more ways that you can give people to actually raise their hand and convert, the better.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about social media. We talk about putting your best foot forward on your personal website and your company brand. What do you suggest? How do people handle their personal accounts? Because I'm guilty of this now. I post things as rental properties into like the Facebook buy sell groups. And when somebody inquires, one of the first things I do now is I check their profile.
That's what we all do. And that's one of the powerful things about social media. Social media is incredible for a lot of reasons in the marketing realm. There's different ways to use it. There's different approaches with it. It's a fantastic tool for relationship building. And so one of the best things you can do, practical advice that people listening can do today that you can implement that will make a difference in your referrals, it doesn't take any money and takes very little time, is to connect on your personal profiles, connect with as many of your clients, centers of influence, people that you rub shoulders with in the business world, connect with all of them just on a human personal level. So if you have a business page, great. I'm not talking about that right now, on the personal side. And then spend a few minutes a day commenting on the things they post. So when people post something in social media, I'll use Facebook as an example. When somebody posts a picture of their daughter, in her dance recital on Facebook, when they're posting things, they're doing it in hopes of getting a reaction, getting people to respond and care and tell you how cute she is and whatever. That's what's actually happening in the psychology of it. And so if you're one of those people that cares enough to comment and say, oh, wow, looks like she did great, congratulations. What ends up happening is very quickly you change the relationship with your clients and centers of influence from, investor and client to friends. And that's what you want to do. You're getting into friend territory with almost no investment in time. You can spend 5 minutes a day and easily comment on 10 or 15 different people's posts. And it makes a tremendous difference in building those relationships over time. And that's something you can do right now. It takes, very little time, no money, and it works incredibly well. And then there's also the paid side of social media, which is very powerful as well. Because it gives you the ability to get, very targeted messages in front of the right people. So, as an investor, what you're looking for in the right type of people that you're looking for. Well, Facebook, for example, is the largest data aggregator in the world. They know a lot about all of us. And it's not self-reported. It's because they buy lists from other companies. So they know, for example, that I have, a 13 and a 14-year-old child because one of the lists Facebook bought a long time ago was my baby registry from Target, 15 years ago. So they know a lot about all of us. And, from a consumer standpoint, that can be a little freaky to think about. But from a marketing standpoint, it gives you the ability to really narrowly focus your messages down to the right market segment.
You say it's creepy, but their algorithm is so good. We almost sometimes, I'm sure it's happened to everybody. You go to your Facebook page, you might have been talking to a friend or family member about a certain topic. You don't think you've ever entered it online. You almost think Facebook or Google has been listening to you in some way because you see an ad almost immediately afterwards. It's not that they're listening to you, but their algorithms are so good that they've picked on any kind of subtleties during your search and your internet traffic to predict what your next move is.
It is, yes. It definitely freaks people out sometimes, but if you look at it through the marketing lens, it allows them to get messages in front of you that are relevant or more likely to be relevant. So if you can learn to appreciate it, that's a good thing. And certainly on the other side of it, when you're the marketer trying to reach those people, we definitely appreciate the specificity of their results because they are great, and it's not, people sometimes think reaching prospects like that in social media is free because technically social media is free. You do have to pay to play on that side of things. If you're trying to get your stuff in front of someone who has no connection to you, you got to spend money to do that. But at least it's very, very targeted money instead of when you think of traditional marketing, you don't really know who's seeing your TV commercial or your billboard.
Yeah, and in some of those cases too, it's kind of interesting to experiment because you can try to tweak and customize a campaign on Facebook, for example, but sometimes their algorithm does a better job than you probably could.
It's true. Yeah, they've got great tools and resources, but testing things out, when you're using those tools, it is good to go into it with the mindset that you're going to have to test things out and, do a little optimizing to really find out what works best. Like if I'm marketing a property on there, I'd probably test out a few different options, maybe the main picture of the property being the front, and then maybe one that's like a picture of the kitchen or whatever, and just see, watch it for a few hours and see which one gets more clicks. And then, you know what to run with.
Sure.
It's very powerful.
You mentioned the personal website, but I've actually noticed a lot of people using their Facebook page or their LinkedIn page as that personal website? Like they have their URL redirected to the social networks. Is that a suggested option?
I mean, it's really not, to be honest with you. There is sort of a judgment that comes with it. Having a website for your business is pretty standard. I mean, that's pretty standard. It is standard nowadays. I mean, you can definitely lose a little bit of legitimacy or credibility in somebody's mind by not having a website. I mean, if you kind of think about looking for a business, if you've ever been in those shoes and the only thing that comes up is a Facebook page, there is sort of a subconscious mental judgment that can come with that. So, I think having a website, and nowadays, honestly, having a website it's pretty simple. I mean, there's a lot of, you can certainly have professionals design and build them for you, and you're going to get the best result from that. But if that's not an option, you can sign up for any one of, different template builders, and they make it really cheap and easy.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely agree. And between all of these services, Squarespace comes to mind. I mean, you can put up a website within a few minutes.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And they look nice, I mean, you still have to figure out the messaging piece of it, and you may benefit from some professional guidance on that, but at least having something that puts a professional foot forward, the barrier of entry is just so low. I definitely recommend it.
Well, in the few minutes that we have remaining, I wanted to touch base on one other aspect here, is that we as real estate investors, we talk about all the time about working on the business instead of in the business. And we have a tendency as real estate investors to really get our hands dirty in a lot of situations and spend a lot of time and effort on some things that, to be frank, there's a lot of value in having a professional do some of the things that we are talking about versus where my expertise would be talking to distressed sellers or building those one-on-one relationships. Talk a little bit about the benefits of having somebody or hiring somebody such as you and your team to do some of this heavy lifting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just like any industry, marketing and branding is very specialized nowadays. And, doing it yourself can be challenging because there's so much advice out there of, oh, you've got to do this and you've got to do that. And really, truly understanding it, really looking at things through the lens of who you're trying to reach and creating a brand presence that's in alignment with that. That's just pretty challenging for most people who aren't trained in it. And it matters a great deal. The good thing is once you have a great brand in place, once you've figured out, okay, what are those right key messages that I should have, and what should people find? What do people care about? And how do I get language around that so that when they come to my website or they come to my social media profile, they read those things and they're compelled to reach out. Once you go through that process, you don't have to do it again. I mean, you may have to tweak it over time or whatever, but it is worth getting it right the first time because it's going to affect, just when you think about the fact that it's going to affect every single person who ever vets you and considers working with you moving forward, you understand, the importance of it. And I do think working on the business and, it's always great to be out there getting your hands dirty and doing the fun stuff that really got you into the industry to begin with. But taking a step back, having a team in place of experts that you trust to ask questions to and to guide you in the right direction is just really important.
I'm probably opening a can of worms here, but if somebody was an investor is looking at getting help like this, what type of questions should they consider asking a marketing professional to make sure it's a good fit?
It's a great question. I think the first thing is really just to get the perspective of the professionals. What is it that essentially, how do I look right now? Audit me right now and tell me, what do you see? And a really good expert is going to be able to point out the things that they would recommend fixing and be able to explain to you why. The biggest tip I can give you is don't ever, if something doesn't make sense, ask questions and don't ever let anybody talk over your head. There are a lot of people in the realm of digital marketing that they take advantage of the fact that it is confusing for people. I could confuse anybody if I chose to on search engine optimization, for example, and getting in the deep weeds of algorithms and this and that. But at the end of the day, if I'm really doing my job, you're going to understand it and you're going to understand why I'm recommending certain things just as well. as I do. So that's just it's a tactic I see people use when they're really kind of salesy and just trying to scam the person, I guess, so to speak. So don't let people talk over your head. Make sure that what they're recommending for you makes sense. I had a client who owns a pizza restaurant and a local pizza restaurant, and they had somebody who was trying to convince them that they had to have an app. And, he came to me and said, what, do you agree? Do I need an app? And I asked him back, what would you use an app for? And in thinking through it, he's like, well, we don't do online ordering. We don't do this. It didn't make sense for him to have an app. And if he just didn't check his brain at the door and thought through that, he knew that. So just don't check your brain at the door, ask lots of questions and make sure that you understand the answers, and you'll be with a good person.
Yeah, and do what they're going to do to you. I probably the first thing too is check their online profile. I always find it interesting that some of the the marketing people that I've talked to in the past, to be frank, have when I do a search for them online, they don't look like they have a complete website, or they don't have their marketing straightened out for themselves. That doesn't make me very confident that they can do that for me.
No, it's kind of like having an overweight personal trainer. I know that's kind of a crass analogy, but it's true. You should have somebody that obviously understands and follows their own advice. And surely if they mean what they're telling you should do, if they really mean it and they really understand it, they would be following that same advice too. So I think that's a good approach. Sure.
So one last time, a reminder, head over to thereferralmagnet.com for more information. This has been a really great conversation. I feel like we're touching the tip of the iceberg as you can go down the rabbit hole of so many things. That's the thing with marketing that I've found, is that one thing leads to another, and you've blown the whole day trying to figure out how to set up a Facebook ad.
That is very true. What I always tell people is in the realm of marketing and advertising, everything works to an extent. So don't get caught with the challenge of trying to figure out what's going to work. Everything works to an extent. The game is figuring out what works the best for the least time and the least money invested. And again, having a good strategic partner that you can bounce ideas off of and talk to is often a really great starting point for people.
Do you find that it's better to focus on one marketing channel at a time and get that figured out, or do you kind of spread things out a little bit?
I do. And throughout the book, The Referral Magnet, I encourage people, don't get overwhelmed in trying to do all of this. Pick a handful of strategies and implement them. And then if you want to add more in over time, add more in over time. I mean, there's a ton of strategies in the book, but if you try to do all of it, it's just too much. You're going to get paralyzed and stop. So yes, I totally think you should master a few things and then add on over time as you need to.
And then people would typically have to figure out a way to measure this so that we could see some sort of return on investment. How do you typically take care of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in the digital world, that's another benefit of the digital world, is that we have a lot of tracking, a lot of analytics. We don't have to guess how many people saw the Facebook post. We know, for example, whereas again, you don't know in a billboard, averages because some salesperson told you. So digital marketing definitely does give you a lot of robust information, tracking information. But really, a lot of times with marketing and branding, it is a combination of doing several different things, all working together in unison, that makes an impact. So building a new website, if you build a website and you have great content and messaging on that website, it's going to make a tremendous difference. And you're going to notice a big uptick in business because you're having more people that come there and that choose to reach out to you, more people that are converting, right? But if you ask them, how did you hear about us? They're never going to give the website credit, right? They're going to tell you, oh, my friend referred me or whatever. So did the website play a role? Yes, it played a critical role, because when they looked for you, they could find you, and what they found inspired them to get in touch. But the website doesn't get the credit for it because it's sort of everything working together. So some degree, I think the best ROI is just measurable growth over time in general. If you're hitting everything on all cylinders, that's the output I look for.
Right. I just look, I can, like I mentioned, it just becomes a rabbit hole. I could just keep asking questions because we haven't even talked about the actual content, video versus written text, and everything that's associated with having some reach on social.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, different marketing experts out there will tell you different things with that respect, and I mean, the reality is that it's good to have a variety. That's what I would tell you. There are people who very much prefer to watch videos. There are people who very much prefer to just read something. So have a variety, like on your website. If you have a video, let's say you have a video blog, have a little section at the bottom that says, click here to read this post, and take the time to have it transcribed. I mean, it's like $5 to transcribe a 5-minute video. So get it transcribed and have the written version there too. Having the more options you have for people and the more different ways you're engaging your audience, the better it's all going to work. There's no magic pill. And so when you hear people say, oh, you have to have it, everything's got to be video, or that's the only thing that works anymore, it's just not true.
Sure. Well, I warned you it was coming. Is there a question you wished I would have asked you here today?
I think what is the most important thing that somebody can do in their business, actionable today, if the net output that they want is more referrals in their business? I would tell you the first thing, the one thing you can focus on that is absolutely going to generate results for you is, again, making sure that your brand is referable, that when somebody is looking for you, they can find you online, and that everything they find, that you're actually saying the right things. Don't let your online presence be an afterthought. You would be surprised how many times I talk to people who have no idea what their LinkedIn profile says. They have no idea what their Facebook profile says. They don't even know what's on their website. These are all things they set up years ago and haven't looked at. But just because you're not looking at them doesn't mean other people aren't looking at them, and that's not affecting whether or not they decide to reach out to you. So pay attention to your web presence, vet yourself, Google yourself, look at every single thing that comes up on page 1 of Google, and make sure that everything is sending the right message. And that alone will make a tremendous impact.
Well, this has been a great conversation. I hope you consider to come back again sometime. Like I said, I think we could deep dive into specific categories and maybe even go a couple chapters out of your book. But I appreciate it. Thanks for being here with me today.
Thank you. I would love that. I appreciate it. Have a great day.